Continue our story, we pick up, I'll probably say a couple hours later, maybe even the next day, where Kakashi is training Sasuke to utilize the Chidori. And then a gust of wind blows by them, and lo and behold, guess who appears? Ingram, checking on Sasuke before he actually has to go do a little bit of training himself, and even asks Sasuke how he's doing since the whole curse mark incident. To which Sasuke, being a lot more cheerful, and I'll probably say a little bit more cocky than the original, because again, he is a lot stronger, does state that he's actually doing great, even learning how to utilize the Chidori along with his wind echo ability, to which he does think he can actually hit Ingram with it, to which Ingram says, okay, try it. To which Sasuke actually just straight up like gets himself a running start and actually charges up the Chidori, going full speed. Keep in mind, again, much stronger Sasuke, much faster Sasuke. So Ingram, being patient, takes out his talons and simply waits, even counting to 3. And as soon as Sasuke reaches him, he moves like a blur and actually cuts one of Sasuke's bangs clean off. Sasuke, even seeing that half of his, well, bangs are essentially gone, simply chuckles and states, well, I guess I'm not that close to you yet, am I? To which Ingram says, no, you're not. However, you are making progress, and that's what matters the most. I just hope that I've done, my job to take care of you well. To which Sasuke says, yeah, of course you have. I appreciate everything you've done with it. You're the best, well, brother I've ever had. To which Ingram can hear like the more hurt in his voice, but he does pat Sasuke on the head, telling him he's proud of him, but does tell him he does need to go and help the others. To which he says he'll be bringing him better opponents, by the way. Now, let's actually talk about who he's training. Naruto arrives to, well, train with him. However, he also sees Neji and Shino also there. Now, you might say, wait a minute, why are they here? Why are they also training with Ingram? And this is because both Guy and Kurenai asked him to, well, train their toughest students, or basically the strongest team members. And this actually does help Naruto build a bond with him. And Naruto is initially confused until Neji simply explains, or simply just, states that, what, you think you're the only one that can get special training? Plus, think of it as a way to get to know each other. And this is where Ingram also states that they could actually use this knowledge to, well, in the tournament as well. Imagine being able to know how your opponent fights, moves, and thinks before you even get onto the battlefield. It'd be perfect. So Ingram actually trains them up, actually gives Neji, Shino, and Naruto some much deserved ones, and they do spar each other consistently throughout the hours and minutes here. Shino's bugs actually get a lot faster, which actually is like horror movie levels of stuff here. But again, he also learns that Shino's not too proficient with wind manipulation, so he does focus up on that, while Neji actually has a knack for it and actually allows him to use not only his rotation to a whole nother level, but actually helps Neji cover his blind spot a lot more, and even allows him to use the rotation in such a way that he's able to use it as an AoE explosion as well, meaning Neji's like 10 times more dangerous than the original. Then we also have Naruto. Naruto's training is still great, as it usually is here, especially in this timeline. However, with his better chakra control, this does mean Kurama can be used a little bit more frequently. However, Naruto gets into a state of pure unadulterated rage, and it actually does get quelled by the arrival of Jiraiya. And this is where we actually see kind of a shift in their perspective. Keep in mind, with the fact that Ingram's in the same category as Itachi when it comes to like power, this does mean he is around the same levels as the Sannin. And even then, if you guys don't really think Itachi at this point in time was around the levels of a Sannin, keep in mind he was still beyond the levels of a Kage at that point, so he was still one of the most lethal out there. So again, he should be around Sannin tier, and Ingram and him are considered equals in this. So yeah, I don't think it would be too hard to say that Jiraiya and him are kind of around the same level, just that they have their advantages. And Naruto does notice that Ingram and Jiraiya really don't like each other all that much. And so when Ingram does state he can train with Jiraiya, Jiraiya does ask him why, they don't like each other. And it's because Ingram sees Jiraiya as a bit more of a goof than an actual warrior. And this does kind of harm their relationship. But again, he does trust Jiraiya to train Naruto. And Naruto does manage to summon Gamabunta a lot quicker than the original. He does fail the first time, but the second time he actually gets it. But now let's actually talk about the final part of the Chunin exams. Sasuke is actually there in his timeline because of his much more social behavior and the fact that, well, Kakashi actually was able to train him a lot quicker to use the Chidori because, again, everyone is much stronger here. Now, some of the matches do go the same. Now, you might say, why did Shikamaru not get training? You know good and well that man is too lazy. Now, while he is great, he is a little bit lazy. But I do think Ingram will definitely, I will have Ingram train him down the line, and I will address it in another part. And this is where, Temari versus Shikamaru still happens the same, with Ingram actually taking a very good interest in Shikamaru's intelligence and shadow manipulation. Kankuro forfeits like the little bit, like the smart genius that he is. And this is where Shino kind of looks at Ingram like, bro, he wussed out. Like, why? To which Ingram simply looks at him and just like, I can't do nothing about it. I'm sorry. But at least you get to go on to the final. So, whatever. And, well, yeah. But this is where we actually get a change in the timeline. Because they are much stronger, and I mean much, much stronger. Like, they would probably two-shot their canon counterparts. Naruto versus Neji plays out a bit differently here. It doesn't go the same way as it does because Neji's Byakugan and Chakra reserves, are much higher. Not in the same category as Naruto's reserves, but again, higher enough to where that sneak attack won't happen. So this means that when Naruto and Neji clash, and they know each other so well at this point here, not in terms of a social, I guess you could say in the social light, but in terms of a physical, I guess you could say, perspective, or a combat perspective, they stalemate. And Ingram's the one to pick them up and actually tell them how proud he is that they both came so far. But again, they do stalemate and knock each other out in a very epic clash. But now, let's go over Sasuke versus Gaara. And, ref, do something. Because that sand kid is getting abused right now. And I mean abused. Keep in mind, Sasuke's speed would already be on another level because he trains with the fastest shinobi in the Leaf Village. And so, Guy and Ingram are actually amazed that Sasuke is that fast. Now, you might say, why would Ingram be shocked? It's because, combining his training with also the fact that Kakashi, trained Sasuke to move like Rock Lee, but again, with the fact that Sasuke is just like 10 times faster, this means everything he does, it is just such on another level that unweighted Lee probably would just be like, oh, dang, I'm outclassed here. And so this is where Ingram cheers on for Sasuke, telling him to land that Chidori right now. And this is where Sasuke actually utilizes Chidori combined with the Wind Echo to phase into the ground so Gaara can't do anything or even see him. And then he comes up and actually cuts through Gaara's shield. However, Ingram senses that scream and knows that it means something. However, when he really takes a look, he's like, oh my god, this man is a Jinchuriki. And then Konoha Crush does happen. However, Ingram, with his sharper senses, is able to spot Orochimaru around Hiruzen. This does mean that the Sound 4, when they get into position, Ingram is able to move at such a fast pace that it looks like he's completely invisible and knees Orochimaru right in the face, getting him away from Hiruzen. And this is where Hiruzen dons his battle costume, and they actually do joke that Ingram was a little slow to actually get up here, to which he tells the old man to shut up and let's get this done. However, Orochimaru isn't as scared of Ingram as he was in the last part, because this man came prepared, okay? And so he does the Edo Tensei, with Hiruzen actually stopping the 4th Hokage's Edo Tensei from coming out, because let's be real, that man would have been dead. Even with Ingram there, I think that having to focus on like maybe more than one Edo Tensei would have been difficult. And so he does summon Hashirama and Tobirama, where Tobirama throws a kunai right past Ingram's face. And Ingram is able to catch the insignia, and he's like, oh crap, I know what that is. And so he just manages to block the flying Raijin, obviously level 1, because Tobirama's not in the same speed category as whatchamacallit, as Minato, excuse me. So he's able to dodge this and then flip kicks Tobirama off of him, even dodging another water dragging attack. And well, Ingram actually sees that when Hashirama starts jumping in, and he actually has to defend Hiruzen. And keep in mind, this allows Orochimaru and Hiruzen to actually fight one-on-one a lot earlier here. So with Ingram fighting against both Hashirama and Tobirama, he's actually getting overwhelmed, and he actually sees this. Even starts opening up more of his wind-based jutsus like Twister, Ventus Reactor, Glimmering Shadow Slash, and stuff like that. He starts doing a whole lot more, just straight up overwhelming and even pushing back the two Hokage. And keep in mind that they are kind of weaker here. I wouldn't say weaker, I would definitely say weaker than in Prime, because again, I guess it's how Edo Tensei works and stuff like that. But again, they were much stronger in the war arc, kind of obvious, right? But again, they're weaker than their war arc selves. So Ingram decides that, okay, it's time for him to start playing around. So Ingram focuses all of his chakra and actually goes into his Phoenix mode, where he actually has his, sky shadow wings on his back and everything. And now he's ready to battle. And this is where he moves at such a speed that there's nothing that could literally stop him. Not even the 4th Raikage or Flying Raijin level 2 could keep up with this level. And Tobirama is now struggling to hit this man. And even, as he is Edo Tensei, they still have some sentience here. And this is where he does compliment that he is definitely one of the fastest, if not the fastest person in existence when it comes to the Naruto media. However, Hashirama does do his whole forest jutsu, and this does change the battlefield. So Ingram decides to not play around and actually activates his Ventus chains. If you guys don't know what this is, or the chains of wind, or the windward chains or whatever, this is a move from Bakugan, or at least the game, right, that's actually able to utilize wind in order to chain opponents. It doesn't matter what it is, you're not getting out of these unless you have a nullification ability or something to bypass or phase out. So Ingram utilizes this and then gets out both of his talents, because now Tobirama and Hashirama are chained together, not able to move, not able to do anything. And he straight up decapitates both of them with so much force that it shatters their bodies completely. And well, he looks around and actually calls out for Hiruzen. He says it again, Lord Hokage, Lord Hokage. And then he jumps up to where Orochimaru and him battled and finds him dead. And this horrifies Ingram, because again, he was so caught up in the fight that he thought the Hokage would last long. And he's shooken up by this and still trying to, I guess you could say, revive him when the others arrive and they have to pull him off, with Kurenai simply telling him, you did your best. And Ingram simply states, no, he failed. He thought he helped. He thought he could save him, but he got so caught up in the fight that However, this is where he remembers something, and that's the fact that Naruto, Sasuke, Neji, and Shino, because keep in mind they are a bit more, abled and ready to fight and stuff, had their own fights, and he does go to check on them, and this is where he finds that they're okay, they're safe, and nothing really bad has happened to them. And even Shino does brag about him fighting Kankuro while Neji was able to fight and beat Tamaru. So yeah, I would definitely add those fights here because it just simply adds more. So after some time with the Elite Village settling down and stuff here after the Hokage's death and stuff, like in the original, Itachi and Kisame appear. With Itachi and, Kisame being a lot more cautious because of Ingram's presence. So they're a bit more cloaked than the original. However, they still get spotted by Kakashi and Asuma, and well, that fight actually goes somewhat the same. While everyone is stronger in this timeline by having a much stronger clan here and a much stronger Jonin in Ingram, this is very different. While Kakashi is closing in on those levels and he could definitely beat Kisame, he's not beating Itachi. Just like in the original, he gets hurt. And then this leads to Asuma getting hurt and Kurenai almost getting killed. However, this is where both Guy and Ingram show up with, well, Guy knocking away Kisame and Ingram putting his talons to the back of Itachi. Not enough to stab through him, but enough to where he feels them. And he simply tells them, you got a lot of audacity showing your face here again. You shouldn't be here, if I remember correctly. How are you? And he does ask how he is, because again, they still had that friendship. They were practically family back then. And Itachi simply states, doing good. How's Sasuke? To which Ingram says, better than you could have ever expected. He's got friends, he's got family. And you need to leave now before I end you. And this is where Itachi, simply smiling at this fact, because again, he still has other things, he and Kisame do leave with that information, feeling happier. However, this is where we kind of end off here with the Konoha Council discussing who should be the next Hokage. Obviously, Danzo the Great here does want to be the next Hokage. And keep in mind, I would definitely have Jiraiya here in the scene, as Jiraiya would definitely protest that he could be Hokage. However, he does have a better candidate in mind until further notice. And that's what we're going to leave it off here, you guys. Please comment down below. Comment, like, and subscribe, and share with your friends. And who is Jiraiya talking about? Who could be a better candidate for Hokage at the moment? But that's going to be all, and you guys have a blessed day.